Okay. So in order to put in a traffic light, DOT has to do a traffic study first. And the way that they handle that is they do neighborhood by neighborhood batches of traffic studies with the goal of seeing whether multiple changes or doing multiple changes at once will have follow-on effects. So they don't want to just do the study for one intersection and then it changes traffic. And then they do another study later for another intersection and it's affected by the first change. So they have a batch that's, I think, Woodbury, Medfield, Hampden, and maybe Remington that they'll do all at once. And they don't know exactly when that'll be, but it'll happen as a batch. Um, the other change along Falls Road is that they're trying to do some traffic calming along that stretch. Currently, parking is restricted to certain times of the day. They're looking at maybe allowing parking throughout the day with the idea that more cars on the street will slow down traffic as people have to go by them. At the intersection of 41st and Falls, we discovered that there's a glitch in the traffic or in the crosswalk. So the crosswalk turns white for the crossing signal, counts down to 0, and then turns white again. And then counts down again. So they're going to see if they can fix that glitch and also start the crosswalk sooner so that pedestrians have more time to cross.
Agatha, I see your hand. Let's get to the end of all of the inputs and then we'll take questions.
I'm going to skip over 41st Street briefly. For the bridge from Hampden into Woodbury, the city is planning on repainting lines and then adding the protected bike lanes. So we could potentially get flex posts there. And then the last thing is that along 41st, the Medfield Community Association has $50,000 in grant money for traffic calming along that stretch. They have a meeting on October 5th at 5:30 p.m. at the Medfield Community Space. We are welcome to come out and support their traffic calming, but they're looking at different ways to figure out how to slow down traffic there. So that could include signals that pedestrians push to turn on a light signaling for a stop. It could include an additional traffic light. It sounds like there's already infrastructure for a traffic light at Buena Vista and 41st. Could also include stop signs. The one caveat that we heard from James Torrance is that if there's any traffic calming along that stretch, they will have to move the speed cameras that are there now. So they're going to try to figure out how they want to do that. But if you have input, if you want to show support for slowing down traffic through there, they're having the meeting.
Yeah, Blaze and then Agatha.
So it seems like this walk was for figuring out ways to make it more safe for pedestrians. Most of the ways are by doing stuff to the roadways. What about the sidewalks? Because they're crap.
Yeah. We didn't hear anything from them about that, but we can certainly bring that up going forward.
Sure. I mean, just making it like ADA compliant, maybe.
Yeah.
The length of Falls Road would be.
No,
awesome.
I've definitely read that
They have to.
we are very far behind.
They have to.
Okay.
Okay. They have to do the ramps
Mhm.
really accessible.
Is that going to happen once the roadways have been done? I guess because they're paving everything and then they'll blow it.
I'm not sure where Hampden is in the cycle, but generally when they do resurfacing, they're also doing the curves. So I can check on that where they are. In terms of
That would
like
be great.
stumbling over cracks. They weren't doing this before, but they are now. The OT is now fixing sidewalks, not the responsibility of the owner if a tree is involved.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
So typically, if you want a sidewalk fixed, it is the owner of that property's responsibility. So even though that it's the right of way, the owner is responsible for up to the curb. If the damage has been caused by a tree, because of the roots growing out, they are fixing those without, that's not the responsibility of the owner. So the key there is just put in as many 311 requests. Now for example, the work that was done along Keswick, the 3000 block up to the 3200 block, that was all done, not all of it was done, but a lot of it was done, because of tree damage.
Okay.
So just so you know, usually the sidewalks are in bad shape because the trees. Out.
Great.
Okay.
So Agatha, do you want to ask your question or offer your comment?
Sure, thank you, and appreciate the presentation. One, so I kind of have two questions, one short one, hopefully. What does HAWK stand for?
So
HAWK?
yeah, so a hawk signal is a signal where there would be a little button on the side of the road, and then a pedestrian who wants to cross would push that button, and then a light over the road would signal for drivers to stop.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
It stands for, actually, I don't remember what it stands for. The K is for crosswalk, though, confusingly enough.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. And hopefully the second one is not too long. The Moorling Avenue and Falls Road study that I believe Councilman Torrance had said they wanted to do a traffic light study.
Mhm.
Does that mean, do you know if the study would include or could potentially lead to other recommendations beyond a traffic light, or is the study really focused on like having a traffic light there?
I can speak to that. So this is from the prior safety walk, maybe a year and a half ago. So the concern up and down that portion of Falls was that there was no safe place for people to get across the street to Wicked Sisters or, McDonald's, depending on which way you're going, for multiple blocks. And so when Eric from the Department of Transportation, when we were walking along, they kind of settled on Moorling as the one that made the most sense to them. That's actually my street. I have mixed feelings about having a light there. So just wanted to say, like, we're not advocating for a light on Moorling. We're just asking for a reasonable traffic calming situation somewhere along Falls. So that's where we are.
Thank you both. It's very helpful.
Oh, go ahead.
There was a conversation last year about crosswalks across Falls.
Yeah.
That's just not going to be safe.
Yeah, that was the feedback we got from
Yeah.
DOT, was that they
Yeah.
really don't want to do any mid-block
Falls sense
crossings.
of security.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're
But we
just
are going to take out the peak parking restrictions. DOT talked about that?
Yes.
Amazing, because they have been resistant to my bill to do it. So I'm very happy to hear that.
we're just about at time, so if we want to make that quick. Do you have a quick question?
Two very quick.
Okay.
These guys, who's responsible for occluded four-way stop signs? And what about light posts that are right in the middle of the sidewalk?
Right.
Who's responsible for that? BGE or
So street light posts or
street light
traffic
posts?
lights?
Street light posts.
Well, so the
We could take this after the meeting.
yeah, street lights, most of them are DOTs, a lot of them are BGE, so it would depend. I know that's not a satisfactory answer, but.
And how about four-way traffic signs that are occluded by trees?
You're saying stop
forestry.
signs.
Stop signs.
Right, so that would be for a request, 311 request to forestry to trim the tree.
Would that be different if it's somebody's personal tree, though?
It's the owner's responsibility.
Okay.
So if it's somebody's personal tree, you still can put in 311
Mhm.
request, but the forestry can at least give them a call and say,
Mhm.
hey, we can trim it or you can trim it.
Okay.
If I can add to that, the forestry came to our on Hickory and they told us that there's at least a 2 to 3 year delay.
Yeah, that's what I was
When was
talking about.
that? When was that?
About a month ago.
It's not supposed to be a 2-year delay, but I got they're managing expectations.
Yeah.
We're at a
Good,
1 year
yeah.
delay, I think, yeah.
Good. Tim, thank you so much for leading this effort. So huge applause for that. Tim showed up with a 3-ring binder with notes for each stop. It was very impressive. So really great. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to call up Randall for our next topic. And for those online, I'll be sharing our screen once again with some slides. All right. So you'll recall that when we last left this conversation, we asked for Randall to go back to the community at large and take a few actions. So the first was to consult with residents near the park. So basically the ones adjacent to the park on 36th, having already spoken to some folks on Falls. We asked for confirmation about the lumens. So the light that, we're talking about Flamingosaurus. So how many people in the room know what we're talking about? So Flamingosaurus. Yeah, pretty much everybody. Okay. So this is an art project. Okay. So we have one person in the back.
2 in the back.
All right. 2 in the back. Randall.
For 20 years, there was a flamingo on the front of the Cafe Hun, on Falls Road at Roland Avenue. It was on the fire escape. 3 years before it came down, I changed it into a Flamingosaurus by putting the silhouette of a Tyrannosaurus Rex behind it. And it came down about a year ago, and I applied for a Maryland State Arts Council planning grant to put one up in Roosevelt Park and received a sizable grant to plan it out. And right now I am at the point of asking for the Hampden Community Council to vote on whether or not they would support that. If the Hampden Community Council didn't support it, it will not happen. If they do support it, it doesn't mean it's going to happen yet. It means that it will be forwarded to Baltimore City Parks and Recreation, and they will do ground studies, and engineers will be called, and the feasibility of moving forward will come forward. So the first thing that I was asked was to talk to all the residents that are right on the park. Prior to the June 28th meeting, I had contacted, I knocked on every door from 83 all the way up to the corner of 36th Street. And I got 10 people that agreed and 2 people didn't want it. And most of the other houses were vacant, waiting for renters. In preparation for this meeting, I started at West 36th Street and Falls Road and went all the way down to Pool Street. And then I went down Pool Street and I gained another 20 signatures. And 2 people didn't want to talk to me and 2 people just grunted no. And these are the slides of the people who are for it.
So for folks in the room, these are photos of signatures that Randall collected going house to house about support for the project being in Roosevelt Park.
It was a unique experience to knock on people's doors and tell them this would be probably the most interesting survey they would ever be asked to sign. And then I went on to say the word Flamingosaurus, and there was a lot of enthusiasm, which really encouraged me and made the next door I knocked on even easier. Some neighbors, actually, one neighbor followed me from house to house telling people to sign it. She was a darling. I think she's 80 years old. And then 2 houses down, a neighbor said, "Here, let me take this," because she was in the backyard having beverages with her neighbor. And so they both signed it, and I even got the signature of one of the Hampden Community Council board members. So that was all very encouraging. As at the last meeting, there was concern about how bright this would be. And one of the attendees of the meeting brought up that we have street lights in front of our houses. And I found out that the average street light burns at about, well, it doesn't burn really, but 5,000 lumens, which casts quite a bit of light. I'm asking that the perimeter, the silhouette frame of the Tyrannosaurus Rex have 500 lumens, which would be 10% of that. So that should not be a concern of anyone. I would compare that to perhaps a dim nightlight in your hallway that gives you.
Be that green.
Yes, but it could seasonably changed to orange during baseball season, or purple, or red and green during the holiday. And if,
Are we taking questions after?
yes, please. Thank you. As far as there was concern that the extra light might actually encourage more crime, I found out that the skate park closes at 10 p.m. and I would be happy with the light on the Flamingosaurus turning off at 10 p.m. So that I don't see as a big problem, because again, it would be off when the skate park was. There was a concern about graffiti, and I understand that concern because there's quite a problem with it. Even though the bowls of the skate park had been painted, some people still come in with graffiti. With that in mind, the average basketball hoop is 10 feet in the air, and the bottom of the Flamingosaurus would be 14 feet high. And we would take precautions to keep people from being able to climb up it. It would be on a pole, much like a cell phone tower. So it would be difficult to climb a pole that's that wide and that smooth. Perhaps, I don't want to say impossible, because where there's a will, there's a way. In the 20 years that it was on the front of the building, and you could debate that there were more streetlights around it when it was there. In 20 years, there was never an issue, because I'd been the caretaker of it since its inception. What else can I say? If there were graffiti, there would be in place a committee to watch over the Flamingosaurus. So, and as long as I live in Baltimore and I have no plans of moving, I would make it my priority to take care of it. I cannot. Oh, and the last point of interest was the principal of the Christian school. They love the circle. He brings, or the teachers bring students across the street to play in the circle. So after meeting with him on July 28th at 9 in the morning, we discussed other possibilities. And the two pictures in this slide, the number one would be my first preference, which would be right between the stairs. Now, of course, this would need to be approved from someone who did a ground study and the engineer, or at the very back of the circle. So with those two options, Daryl Hirschberger gave me the thumbs up and said that he was for it. So that's what I have.
Good. So I'd like to open up for any questions for clarification before we go ahead and take a vote. I know there's starting to be some comments in the chat, but I want to first start off with questions for clarification. So question in the back, sir?
Yeah, just because I want to be clear exactly what the sighting is going to be for those of us in the room. Is it going to get in, is it involving an otherwise open space, or is it tucked in a place that keeps, can you tell us about
It would be kitty corner to the convenience store.
Okay.
And there used to be a kiddie pool there. There's a circle. There's steps that go down to kind of a pseudo amphitheater. There's kind of some steps where people can sit. And it would either be at the back of that or right in between the stairs, but the bottom of it would be 14 feet tall. The sculpture itself, from the bottom of it to the top of the head, it's 16 feet. And then the frame would be a little larger. So thinking it would be almost 40 feet in the air.
If the grant gets, if the location gets turned down, if it doesn't work in the park, would you lose that funding or would it be transferable to another location? And how does that work?
The grant is just a planning grant, and I've not come close to spending it. I've got about 2.5 months. Upon approval, I will pay the engineer to tell me the feasibility of those spots.
Okay, so I have Eric online, then Blaze, then Crystal. Eric, go ahead.
Sorry, my question was answered by the previous person. Move
Okay,
forward.
great, Blaze.
Sure. Just because of where it was located on Cafe Hunt, it kind of had a natural barrier to wind and rain, all those things, with it being on the side of the building. Will it be in a fixed position or would it be like a?
It would be a fixed position. I've talked to other artists who do public art, and the feasibility of something that turns would be very difficult.
Sure.
The engineer would come in and say how much concrete we have to have, how deep
Yeah.
for it to sustain. I do not want to brag about how I put the other one up with U-hooks. But it survived 20 years and I was up there with my battery operated drill and long wood screws, and this will not be like that. This will, it will need to have it because it's in a public park. It would need to be permitted and the engineers would need to sign off, and that's a tall order.
Sure. What is it made out of? I'm trying to remember.
The old one fiberglass, the new one would be fiberglass over a metal frame.
Crystal, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, hi. Two quick questions. So if you don't get what you need within the next 2 months, is the grantor willing to do a modification and extension for you to move?
I will be talking to them as soon as this vote comes in about what I need to do next. Again, the money they gave me was just for the planning of this. So I will, by hook or by crook, no, I shouldn't say that. I will move forward with enthusiasm pending the outcome of this vote.
Great. And
Okay.
last question.
Yes. The second quick question is, so I'm looking at space number 2 in particular. So if it in fact goes there, is there plans for a study to be done environmentally so that the green space around it does not, die, or however that's going to be maintained?
All of that will be addressed with the engineer coming through.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Crystal. And then in the room here?
So, I'm Tex Andrews, by the way. My wife is Frances Platform, who's been to these meetings. We're both museum professionals. My wife was a registrar at the Baltimore Museum of Art for decades, since 1984. Now she's a curator of the Asian collection. I work at the Hirshhorn since 2011 and with collections closely and exhibits. I would just like to throw this out that with public art, with any public sculpture that's in the elements, you've got maintenance costs that will continue into the future and will get worse into the future. So right now you're at the planning phase. I would just caution everybody to think about money into the future, and if you're going to do this, it needs to be funded it's kind of foundational way, so that when you are gone or hit by a truck or something, it's still
Or win the lottery? We could go that way too.
I don't pay for that.
I'm starting to think about that more, so that we have your guarantee now that you're going to maintain it. Well, that's great until you're not here. And so I'm just saying that for the community council to consider this, they need to think seriously about the cost for conservation, which, like I say, accrue and get worse over time. Just say.
I hear you and I understand and I believe I addressed that in the beginning and I agree with you that it does need to be taken care of and I know the life of fiberglass is long, but the life of the paint that covers it is not so long. And I know that the cost of the yacht paint that I put on the original one, it blew me away when it came to 3 gallons at $900, but it was actually a hardener with a pigment added to it. That being said, I also believe that art does have a life, and I know sculptures that have been taken down after 20 or 30 years or 10 years even. My goal would be to plan for 20 years and have a committee in place, which it'd still be called the Flamingosaurus Vision Committee, and really plan for that. But I know that things change over time, and I mean, I'm a single guy. I guess I could put it in my will that, but I'm not wealthy. My goal is to bring something fresh and inspiring to Baltimore and kind of extend the sculpture. But beyond that, yeah, I do understand and a committee would be in place, but as far as anyone moving forward with the same enthusiasm that we're moving forward with now, I can't predict.
So it sounds like you might be a really great resource. Would you be willing to stay around and talk to Randall after?
I'll stick around for a
Great.
little while. I haven't had dinner yet.
Okay, duly noted. Great. I'm going to put in the chat, which is not going to be helpful for folks here present, but I'm going to put in the chat the link to the voting. And this will be open, as I mentioned, through Thursday midnight. So again, everyone is welcome always to HCC meetings. Voting is for members who have paid dues this year. So let's say you are not sure if you've paid dues, or you're like, oh yeah, I've meant to do that, but I haven't done that. You have till Thursday to do so. So you may vote, and like the order of that is not going to make a difference as long as both are in by the end of the day on Thursday. Any questions about the technical aspects of voting? So I will be posting this recording on Facebook, including the link to make sure that folks can have the information they need to make an informed decision. And there was an email that went to our overall email list of, I think, about 800 people earlier this weekend that had the link to the voting for those who couldn't be here tonight. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
There's a great technical question. If we have a family membership, how many votes do we get? You get one. So you'll have to talk to your other family members and figure out which way you are. So yeah, thanks, Misty, for that. Good. Okay, pause just for a second while I get the link in the chat for folks. All right, there it is. Super. Okay, great. All right, so let me get back to other things that we wanted to discuss tonight. Okay, some quick zoning items. There was just one new zoning piece that was up this month. This is for 1212 Union. That's okay. It sounds exciting, whatever it is. Okay. So this is for 1212 Union Avenue, but really it's for the back side of that. So the property that's being discussed is actually for Delwood, so 1219 and 1217 Delwood Avenue. The proposal is essentially to take that that vacant space that is there now and put two semi-detached single-family dwellings there. So there's no date listed on the zoning. That is the information we have. One other update that I wanted to offer folks was that you'll recall from earlier this year, there was a lot of conversation about suspended brewery coming to the Hampden Wyman Park. And I am pleased to share that that Josie has purchased a property on Falls. And so we'll be working with the HCC to come up with a memorandum of understanding about the hours that they will be opening. But it seems like it's a done deal because he was able to get that property. So it seems like it's happening. So I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think I can certainly get it for you. It's adjacent to Wicked Sisters. I think it's the one. No, I think the old circus is a body art place. I think it's the one.
Circus is to neighbor.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's
to the next to that used to be a Trico Studio Salon.
Yes. So I think
there's also some other empty space in there as well.
Thanks, Libby. I think the salon is the one that's the tattoo place.
It's at the end of it, right?
Right before
No, good question. It's on the opposite side of Poppy's. I believe it is north of Wicked Sisters. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Sorry for just bringing partial information there, but wanted to make sure that we have yeah, some comments about that. I don't happen to have the latest on the karaoke space turned restaurant. Do you happen to have the latest on that, Councilwoman?
Yes,
Would you like to come up and share?
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Oh, there's a lot of people online. Wow. Yeah, so 4001 Falls, which is the back of Redfish. They ran out of time to actually do the renovations. So the owner has filed for a new application for the transfer of the liquor license using his and his brother's name, which is allowed. So we're just starting over, basically. We don't have a date or anything for a hearing. We probably want to reach out anyway and just try to be a little bit more proactive. Excuse me. And I'll take care of that. But that's where we are on that one. Let me do my updates while I'm here. You still zoning?
Yeah. That was it for zoning, unless there's something that somebody wanted to bring up.
I actually am having a meeting with the residents on the 3000 block of Elm, the 3000 block of Darby, and the 800 block of South Darby. There was one of the residents there had asked for a zoning variance to put an addition on his house. The zoning board no longer has a consent agenda. So in the past, when they had a consent agenda, it meant that if there was no opposition for the variance, they would let it go. So many of the neighbors in that area have additions on their properties because they were allowed to do so. When this gentleman went to get an addition to his property, it was denied because they're now going by the letter of the zoning code. So his issue and anybody else who wants to have a variance would be resolved by rezoning those 3 blocks from R7 to R8. And so I have not made a decision about that. This is just a proposal. And so we're meeting with the residents on Friday evening just to see if there's all kinds of other not complications, but technical issues with the zoning. But right now they're all what's called non-conforming. Their lot sizes are bigger than what the zoning code currently allows for an R7. So it makes sense to go ahead and change it to an R8. The conversion laws are the same. If somebody wanted to convert it to 2 units, it still have to come through an ordinance, which means you'd have to get approval from the neighborhood. So the only thing that changes is just the lot size requirement. So that'll be on Friday, and then we'll come to the community association for approval on the following meeting before I introduce it. So there's that piece. We had incredible flooding a couple weeks ago because of that horrible storm. It was what's called a 100-year storm that has now happened like
7 times.
3 times in the last 10 years. So it's not like it's going to get any better. We had significant flooding in several places in my district. If you had any flooding, if anybody could please let me know. We're trying to identify all the spots that had unusual flooding, like that's just completely unusual. You normally wouldn't get water in your basement or whatever. Because the Department of Public Works has started to do an analysis of the major flooding areas in our city, starting in my district, 35th and Hill and along the Stony Run. Stony Run went completely over its banks. We also have a series of hidden streams in the city. So as Baltimore was developing, and it was like, oh, there's a stream there, let's pipe it and then build over it, as opposed to sort of using the stream. So those are starting to overfill and become an issue as well. So we're trying to figure out the right solution. So if anybody here or anybody online got any flooding last Tuesday, please let me know. We're also hosting, along with the Maryland Insurance Administration, a session on this coming Thursday, 1 at noon and 1 at 5, so that you can ask your questions about insurance if your insurance company is giving you a hard time about covering any flood damage. I do know, Nicole, you had talked to, and I'd heard from Mary also about Elm. I knew that they would start flooding in Elm behind near the rotunda. So anyway, I never thought I'd end up being a flood engineer with this job, but here we are as well. So I think those were my major updates that are local. Yeah, Nicole, yeah, from the Pleasant Place Park. Yeah, any details you have would be super helpful. Yeah, and there's a river running through it. So so that's part of what's happening there. That's why we didn't want to have that back alley paved also behind those properties on Roland, because we knew it would end up being super bad in terms of for the properties on each side. So so that's what we're dealing with at the moment. But otherwise, my work that I've been doing is mostly around housing, tax sale reform, making sure people don't lose their homes because they can't pay their taxes. Also addressing vacant properties, not a big deal in Hampden, but certainly a big deal in other parts of the city, and that does impact us. I have a couple of other pieces of legislation coming related to that, and I'm working on that. And then of course I've got my inclusionary housing bill, which I hope will pass very soon. So there's a lot happening. So I'm happy to take any questions as well.
I did want to raise the last issue for our meeting, which is the some folks have noticed in the Walgreens parking lot, there is a new kind of apparatus that is some blue lights that are flashing. It has 3 cameras that this is and an announcement that says this place is being monitored at 24 hours. And that little sound goes off every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, something like that. There was some chatter online. People are not excited about it. I have received multiple emails myself. The question is, what can we do to take it down? This was something that was not put in by the city. This was
Not,
in.
it's not PD. It's Walgreens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they did, as far as I understand, suffer some like thousands of dollars of shoplifting. And so this is their solution, which is a deterrent. So
I just want to add to that,
Yeah.
that the health department is the one that monitors sound violations. And so they have received multiple complaints about this one and several others that Walgreens has done. But they have been successful in working with Walgreens at least to turn off the announcement. So the light might stay there, but the announcement at least will be.
So do you think that that's
They're
just
working
another-
on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it true that Walgreens is beat that location?
I have not heard that. It's in Torrance's district, so he may have more.
So we talked with James Torrance about that on Ewok. The answer is that the Walgreens will stay. They will, they have a long-term rental agreement, but there's the building ownership is changing hands.
I heard secondhand from a policeman who was there yesterday. He spoke to a manager. So you're hearing this now third hand. So, take it appropriately with a grain of salt. That Walgreens was looking to get out at the end of a year from now. So I think things are in flux is what I would say. I think we don't know.
Yeah, the Walgreens left the rotunda, so.
Hopefully no more audio.
The crime happens inside the building, not in the parking lot. If they got a security guard, it seems like that might be a deterrent.
The person probably costs less than that machine.
Probably. Well, no, I don't know. It just depends. I mean, it has solar panels on it, so it's being powered by solar. It's not, so I don't know. I know that the councilman has been working on it, so I'm sure he can send over I've been CC'd on all the emails, so. We do have, just to deal on public safety for a minute, we've had increased complaints about some of our friends who are experiencing substance abuse along the avenue and are trying to work in a way that provides them with assistance in addition to working with the state's attorney's office and the police to do the citation docket. And I think Darnell is here if you want to have him talk about the citation docket. But so the idea is to try to get assistance. The citation docket is the new way that the state's attorney and the police are trying to address low-level crimes without arresting people. So they'll issue a citation. The person's supposed to show up to court. If they don't show up to court, then there's more. There potentially could be an arrest. Darnell, I know you're running out of time, so I don't know if you wanted to give Darnell any time, but that's one of the things we're trying to figure out the best way to address this issue.
Yeah, Darnell, if you would be so kind, if you're available to offer some comments, just noting that there have been 2 gun incidents over the last month, and one at the park and one on 37th. And I know that's weighing heavily on a lot of our residents' minds.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, glad to have you.
Okay, let's start with the citation docket. So citation docket is State's Attorney Alvin Bates introduced it a couple of months ago. So we all know that the last administration wasn't prosecuting for low-level crimes, and this administration is. So what he said was that we don't want to go just straight out arresting people for these low-level crimes. So he partnered with BPD to go back to giving out citations. Now, BPD has had a time when they gave out citations before. This one is a little bit different. So for the low-level crimes, let's say loitering, trespassing, dirt bikes, hacking, open container, simple distribution. It's a list of them. They would get a citation. So let's just say somebody's, loitering in front of the 7-Eleven on 36th Street, right? Police come through, they go and talk to them and they give them a warning first. Say, hey, you need to get from in front of here. You're loitering. Police leave, the guy leaves, but the guy comes back. So the police come back, see him there again, they give him a citation. So he goes to citation court, which is one of the 3 district courts in the in the city, once a month at each court, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So when they get in front of the commissioner or the citation court judge, they'll get 5 hours of community service to be done in the area where they got the citation. But also while they're there, they'll get exposed to wraparound services. So they'll get exposed if they want to get, some education, they want to get housing, they want to get, they need food, they want to get a job, like those type of things will be there for them to take advantage of. Once they do the 5 hours of community service, they get that charge dropped at the next hearing. If they get another citation, they go before it again, they get 10 hours of community service hours, and they still get, exposed to the wraparound services. Now, if they don't want to, take advantage of any of the programs, any wraparound services, or they get a third one, you're just asking to be prosecuted. So they get prosecuted for what that, low-level crime is. It's a way of holding them accountable, but also saying it's a way of helping out, just not going straight to arresting people. We know that Baltimore suffers from a lot of issues on our streets when it comes to loitering, when it comes to open air drug markets, when it comes to stuff like that. And we're just trying to just clean it up. Now, it's been slow since we started, and all of our wraparound services have not been put into place yet, but it's coming. So what he's saying is give him another, some more months, maybe a year from now, you'll see it more. But the thing about it is we don't want to see the numbers go up of people getting citations. We actually want to see people not getting citations. Because if they're not getting citations and the police are out there, doing what they're supposed to be doing, that means people have stopped doing the things that cause them to get citations. So that's the hope that's going to happen. But we know that, with BPD able to give out citations, MTA police, Morgan, Captain, and the sheriff's office all giving out citations, we could see a lot happening, and hopefully, we'll see it die down. So that's what the citation docket. So we're hoping that could curb some of the things that are happening in Hampden also. But I know that there's a couple of incidents, especially with a couple of people that may require more to happen with the partnership of police, the BPD, State Attorney's Office, Department of Social Services, behavioral services, all that type of things. As far as the shootings, I don't know about the one that happened on 37th Street, but I know about the one that happened down by Ace, and I'm still waiting for either Councilman Torres's office was supposed to get in contact with me with the name of the suspect that did it, or BPD, and I have not received that yet to see when that person's court case is going to be. So I'm still waiting on that.
I'm fairly confident that folks would want to submit statements, impact statements around that. I'm thinking particularly of the parents at the Hampden Christian School, among others. So yeah, definitely let's be in touch over the next couple of weeks. Question online, who knows what happened on 37th? My understanding from Councilman Torrance was that there was an argument between 2 individuals who are residents of the Buena Vista Apartments. and that spilled over into the streets, walking up through our neighborhood, and a shot was fired. An individual was shot in the shoulder. Blaze, do you have any more information since you're okay? And yeah, that's the information that
So was it suspect apprehended? Arrested or anything, or?
I don't actually know about that.
Do you know, Darnell, was there an arrest made?
I do not know.
Don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
I know we have a methadone clinic
Mm-hmm.
as a form of treatment, but are there any rehab programs tied directly to that, or do they just not want anyone to get better so they can stay there?
For-profit business, same story.
So why do we have a methadone clinic that's for profit, and the more customers they have, the better they do, and we don't have any treatment programs directly tied to it?
So outstanding root cause question. Let's pick that up at the next meeting, since we're basically at time. But keep asking good generative questions like that. Any last comments from folks, knowing that as always, we want to be hospitable to we want to be good guests to those who are hospitable to us in the library. You met Lina, of course, who was wrestling with our screen this evening. So we'll want to make a swift exit once we
The
wrap
only
up.
thing I just wanted to add is that the book bindery has been made historic, so that is official. The next step is I have to pass an ordinance to make it long-term, but that is done.
The timing is good because I think the Swifts are here.
Oh, I just
back.
saw the Swifts. I just saw them. Yes.
Yes, the birds one.
Yes, I just saw
That's
them as I was
amazing.
waiting for this meeting.
What about the water tower and the Hawks?
At the Roland Water Tower, yep, the Hawks are there. They came back. The Falcons, they are peregrine falcons. They've made a special box for them so that they wouldn't come in, and they came back.
Nice.
Yep.
Thanks so much to everybody online for joining us. Thanks so much to everybody in the room who came in person. Libby, yes, you can have the final word.
Good, everybody. Hampden merchants are happy to announce that we are back to 100% full Hampden Halloween Fest this year. So after having done different kinds of permutations to try and get through COVID, be trick or treating on the avenue starting at 5 o'clock. The full on costume contest will once again happen in the 800 block. So anybody who has, those old family rivalries and trying to better each other. But we're excited about being able to have it all back. So great.
Excellent. Solely for folks in the room, if you're not like a online savvy person or like really don't want to deal with that, but are a member and want to vote, come see me afterwards as we're exiting, and we'll just make sure that you're sorted out. Wishing you all a wonderful start to October, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Take good care, everybody.
Citation thing.